Hey, I'm Caleb from Caleb's Aviation. Welcome back to my channel, and to another video. This video will be examining all about the crash of Jeju Air Flight 2216. This video will be more of an analysis and aftermath video, which is a new series on my channel, and I hope you enjoy. There's some new information, which is why I redid this video, which you may have seen earlier. For those who don't know, Jeju Air is a low-cost carrier from South Korea, who was performing a routine flight with a 737-800 back in December. The 737 in question was Hotel Lima 8088 and was 15 years old. Today's flight would call for the aircraft to be sent from Bangkok in Thailand to Muan in South Korea. After crossing 2,100 miles of flying and 4 hours 30 minutes flying time, the aircraft came to land in Muan, South Korea. Here's the map for those of you who wanted to see the full map, not the flight radar map. The 737 began its approach when all of a sudden there was a problem. The aircraft was suddenly struck by a flock of birds near the airport on approach. As you can see here, the birds made contact and were ingested by the 737's turbofan engines. These birds were decent sized, a type of bird called Baikal teals, which their DNA was found in the engines on the post-crash analysis. These birds are duck-sized, and although many engines, including those on 737s, are built to take it, duck-sized birds are not something they're designed to handle. As seen in this test here, a bird can still do extensive damage to an engine, even when they're supposed to be built to take it. However, with so little altitude left at this point, the pilots still decided to attempt a landing. However, for some reason, the gear did not come down. The aircraft performed what was called a belly-up landing, which is a relatively common maneuver, which is usually pretty safe. However, in this instance, there were catastrophic results. Just beyond the runway, there was a retaining wall, which the aircraft collided with at high speed. Unfortunately, this totally destroyed the aircraft and immediately set an explosion. This is what led to such a high death toll. 179 lives were lost in this accident as a result. This wall was part of the Instrument Landing System, or ILS system. This is important to be there for the ILS, which helps guide airplanes in for descent on landing, as you can see here with these ILS map systems. However, this wall is what ultimately would destroy the aircraft. In post-crash analysis, the birds were determined to be a type of foreign object debris, and by being ingested into the engines, they certainly contributed to this accident. However, there's more to the story than just birds colliding with the engines. Unfortunately, the aircraft crashed due to a number of factors, which we will now discuss. I just wanted to get the other information out of the way. According to the flight data recorders, not both engines were damaged, only the right-hand number 2 engine was destroyed by ducks. How had two experienced pilots made such a horrible mistake in judgment by shutting off the wrong engine? That is still a mystery and may never be known. In this accident, the crew must have thought the number 1 engine on the left wing was the source of the trouble, and so they cut it off. They shut off power and fuel to that engine, which only left them with the problem right-hand engine. By shutting it down at such a low altitude, the aircraft simply ran out of speed, and they had no choice but to try a landing. This landing at high speed was risky, however they did not have any power left to go around and try again. This accident reminds me of an accident that occurred in 1989, when British Midlands Flight 92, a brand new 737-400 was on approach and had an engine failure. The pilots were confused and shut down the incorrect engine. This unfortunately left them with no functional engine, as they shut down the properly working engine. This is very similar to what I imagine happened in the cockpit on board the Jeju Air Flight after the bird strike. The pilots reduced power and ultimately shut off the proper working engine, the number 1 engine on the left-hand side. However, in their haste, they accidentally shut down the wrong engine. In the case of British Midlands and Jeju Air, the results of shutting off the wrong engine were catastrophic and fatal. Another item worth considering about this accident has to do with crew resource management. Proper communication by the crew, meaning the 2 pilots flying the aircraft, did not happen. Had this happened correctly and the pilots had been cooperating and talking, they may have noticed the error Traditionally, how it's been is the co-pilot in the right-hand seat doesn't question the more experienced captain in the left seat. However, as we've seen in many accidents, including this one, not questioning things such as human factors or questioning their procedures or their choices has led to fatal results yet again. Unfortunately, this culture continues in a lot of places in aviation, particularly within Asia. Perhaps if the first officer had questioned the captain's decision in shutting down that engine, it may have prevented disaster. Unfortunately, it wasn't questioned. In the end, there are several key lessons to be taken away from this accident, one of which is the concept of see something, say something in the aviation industry. This essentially means that all the pilots have to be vigilant of multiple different things, especially when flying the aircraft, and even inexperienced co-pilots should always question an authority figure if they think there's a genuine threat to the aircraft's safety or well-being. Unfortunately, 179 lives were lost as a result of these shortcomings. However, it is worth pointing out lessons must always be learned from accidents such as this, because those who don't learn from their mistakes are bound to repeat them. As my friend Dan likes to say, superior judgment trumps superior skill, and this really is true. In the end, many lessons have been learned from this accident, and as always happens in aviation, these lessons help improve the safety of the industry, and no accident should ever repeat itself as a result. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If so, make sure to subscribe, ring the notification bell, leave me a comment, and let me know what you thought of this video. I really do enjoy these analysis and aftermath format videos, and if you do too, make sure to leave me a like. However, that's going to do it for me. You know the drill. As always, until the next video, wishing you blue skies and tailwinds. Also, my condolences to the families and the victims involved in this horrific accident.